After 3 failed attempts in the Senate to dismantle Obamacare, there's no Republican hoping for a win this week more than Donald Trump, even if that means going after his own party to do it, like in this tweet over the weekend. It's very sad that Republicans, even some that were carried over the line on my back, do very little to protect their president. The president, of course, is talking about loyalty, something that to him is in short supply in Washington these days. Case in point, health care, which he highlighted today at the White House.
For the past 17 years, Obamacare has wreaked havoc on the lives of innocent, hardworking Americans. So far, Senate Republicans have not done their job in ending the Obamacare nightmare.
17 years, off by a decade, but the message is clear. And it's not just health care. While the president and his supporters work to discredit the person investigating his team's potential ties to Russia, Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan told a radio station, "I don't think many people are saying Bob Mueller is a person who is a biased partisan. He's really sort of anything but." So is the president right about GOP disloyalty, or is he the source of the problem? Joining me, our former Massachusetts State Treasurer and big-time Trump supporter, Joe Malone. Nice to see you, Joe.
Nice to see you, Joe.
Professor of Political Science at Wellesley College, Catherine Moon. Kathy, it's nice to see you.
You too.
And former Policy Director with the Romney administration, now a Senior Fellow at the Pioneer Institute, Charlie Cipio. And hello to you, Charlie. Let's start with you. As a Republican, I have a point. Have his fellow Republicans let him down? I'm not asking you a judgment on his policies. His fellow Republicans who ran on many of the same things, are they letting him down?
I don't think they've let him down. I think that, look, the reality is that they live in a political world, and they are going to be up for election next year, and he's an anchor. You know, he's all over the place. He's kind of an embarrassment, and they, more than anything else, they do not want to go down because of him.
So, but wait. Paul Ryan today gratuitously, or at least whenever this interview was, praising Bob Mueller when he knows the President of the United States has been trying to undermine Bob Mueller. That was sort of a gratuitous you-know-what to the president, wasn't it?
Maybe. I don't think so, though. I mean, I think it should matter the fact that Bob Mueller is, by all accounts, an extremely decent guy with a whole lot of integrity, and I think that somebody like Paul Ryan doesn't necessarily want to throw him under the bus for no
One down.
reason.
Does Trump have a point?
You know what? They do have a problem, the Republicans, because Heller out in Nevada, Senator Heller, and Flake out in Arizona.
You know, if you don't say Nevada, you'll never be allowed in the state.
Nevada,
I want to be clear.
Nevada.
Go ahead.
And the senator in Arizona, Republicans, they are right now flailing. In 2018, if the Republicans lose their majority, they have big consequences. They lose the access to decide who the chairs of the committees are, which basically is a really important source of power.
So are you agreeing with Trump that they essentially have to toe the line? And by the way, the Democrats
no,
what are you saying?
Absolutely not.
So
the
what are you saying?
problem is, you know, your first question to Charlie, the Republicans who got in on his so-called coattails, they used him, but they also had no choice. I mean, he was the nominee.
I don't know about coattails.
And he wants to use them, except he's not able to manipulate them.
Okay, so you're the most trumped-up guy on this thing. We know that. You're a big-time Trump guy. Does Trump have a point here?
So first of all, it was a hostile takeover of the Republican Party by Donald Trump. So it's not like he's walking into everybody walking lockstep behind him. So he's got to understand that. Secondly, took Obama 14 months to get through Obamacare. It took Ronald Reagan over a year to get through his package of tax cuts.
Yeah, but Obama,
reforms.
by the way, the Affordable Care Act, there was a process. There was no process here. That's why, so the failure almost like this is of significance. It isn't like the Republicans are trying to do it in stages with public hearings and that sort of thing.
But the point is, he's, 6 months into his administration.
6 months and a few days.
Doing a lot of other really good things that don't involve legislative passage. Now he's got to get 3 things done. He's got to get through this reform or repeal of the Obamacare. He's got to make sure that he gets his infrastructure thing through and his tax thing through.
Yeah, but is he right about the disloyalty thing? By the way, well, he wouldn't say who he was talking about. Lou Dobbs, who's his buddy, who gave him an A+ for his first 6 months in office. Dobbs says he's essentially talking about McConnell and Ryan, the 2 Republican leaders is that they're not doing their half. And for people who say, well, they're doing their best, Democrats haven't lost one vote, even though there's a lot of diversity in their ranks, too. The Republicans are losing enough not to accomplish the Trump agenda.
So, Jim, take Susan Collins, for example, from Maine. I think it's got everything to do with her understanding of her constituency and less to do with anything anti-Trump. She's trying to get reelected. And that's,
okay, let's switch. Yeah, Kathy.
But you know what? It's not just the health care. I mean, today we hear that by 98-2, the Senate has increased and tightened the sanctions on Russia. Exactly what Trump and his folks did not want, and exactly what he and Putin together, when they were handshaking in Europe, did not want. So this isn't just on the domestic front. There is, I think, a growing force in Congress that's basically trying to figure out how to run the country because it's not happening in the White House.
Well, see, but I have to say, I think I disagree with 2.5 years. I think there is disloyalty in the ranks, but I think there's a reason for it, is it's almost payback for Trump for being disloyal to his own people. 8:49 this morning. Remember, he did a thing at the New York Times the other day, trashing Jeff Sessions, his attorney general, and by the way, the first United States Senator, Joe Malone, to endorse him. And he didn't leave it there. This morning at 8:49, here's the tweet from the President of the United States. So why aren't the committees and investigators, and of course our beleaguered AG, looking at Cricket Hillary's crimes and Russia relations? As someone said on my radio show today, Andrea Cabral, he's doing the beleaguering, so he shouldn't be accusing anyone.
Crooked Hillary is not the President of the United States.
But by the way, that's the direction in which the disloyalty is moving. I mean, look at what happened in the last couple of days. Not only trashing his attorney general, he picks this new guy, Scaramucci, to be his director of communications, doesn't tell Spicer, doesn't tell his chief of staff, doesn't tell his chief strategist, Steve Bannon. They all oppose it, and he says, come on down anyway.
And he's saying he's not even thinking about pardons. An underling goes on the Sunday shows and says, yeah, we've been talking about pardons. It's just chaos.
See, I think I think they're paying it back. My attitude, Kathy, my attitude was when he was trashing the intelligence community, even comparing them to the Nazis at one point, my sense was there's going to be payback time. I think the disloyalty, if there is any in the Republican Party, is payback time for abandoning his own people, the Sessions of the world, the Spicers of the world, who apparently is loved in Republican circles. Is there merit to that?
Look, I just don't even think this notion of disloyalty is something that's legitimate that a president of the United States should come out with. The senators, the members of Congress are elected by the people. They are not elected or selected by Trump or any other
How about the flip side? Is he being disloyal to Jeff Sessions?
I think he has been, but you know what? He doesn't care about disloyalty when it comes from him to other people. He just cares about disloyalty or made-up disloyalty. But I think the basic problem is he feels entitled to this strange sense of loyalty, which senators are not beholden to the president. That is a freestanding institution that our Constitution mandates and that protects. And so for him to even assume this kind of terminology is absolutely ludicrous.
You know, but I want to get to this issue about him being disloyal to his own people, what the consequence is. One of the things that, out of this Spicer situation, when you hire a director of communications, who your spokesperson, who I think is he was not a great loss, is against. Steve Bannon, one of your chief policy people, is against. Your chief of staff is against. The message it sends to me is Donald Trump, the President of the United States, doesn't listen to anybody. He doesn't care. Everybody thinks Rex Tillerson, you heard the line, Rexit. The conventional wisdom is he may be leaving here because he can't even hire staff. You have a president who it appears only takes advice from himself. That's a cause of concern, even if you love what he's doing.
And by the way, Jim, he did that throughout defeating 17 Republicans. He did that throughout defeating
He's running the federal
Hillary
government
Clinton.
now. He's not running a campaign.
Understood, but that is his style. He's not going to change it.
You're okay with that?
Well, you know what? He sometimes he's his worst enemy. I'll grant you that. But you know what? You look at the stuff other than the legislature, other than the House and Senate, he's making progress. The lowest lowest gas prices in years, the stock market, the people coming into this country
doing great
illegally.
With Congress, don't you think?
No, Congress he isn't.
But, Joe,
that's
like the old, Mrs. Lincoln. How did you enjoy the play?
Right. I mean, the gas prices have nothing
like
to
Kathy and then go.
Low gas prices have nothing to do with Trump. It actually has more to do with Obama in terms of doing more drilling and actually making our own domestic produced oil available. so
So
many
the
things,
stock market, for example,
unemployment rates,
Professor.
etc. All of these things are things that have been actually in motion before Trump.
Well, I
so
would be-
it's
Well, wait a second.
really
in all
hard
fairness,
to
now I'm going to side
take-
with Joe Malone. He did pick Neil Gorsuch, who is a hardline conservative, and got him confirmed. He has brought illegal immigration across our southern border down fairly dramatically. The stock market is up fairly dramatically. None of that accrues to the actions of Donald
The stock
Trump.
market, I think, first of all, Gorsuch, if people believe that he is a fine constitutional scholar, which many people do, I think that's a different category. I mean, that's not a policy. This is a human
Is anything
being,
more important than
right?
who you were able to get on the Supreme Court of the United States in terms of legacy of the
I
president?
can't say that there are less important, I mean, more or less. It's very
I'd say
important.
war and Supreme Court justice is
More,
what it's all about.
very, very important. But I'm fine if Gorsuch is a fine Supreme Court justice and he turns out that way, great. But I'm looking at issues that he actually might take credit for that have nothing to do with him. And I think it's really misleading to the American public to make him, and he does that very well. He tries to claim things that he hasn't done.
He's not the first to
Well,
have
of
done
course.
that.
You can get the last
Yeah.
15 seconds
Thank
on
you.
credit here.
So again, I believe that the stock market, contrary to those who are in opposition to Donald Trump, where they say we're going to have the Trump slump, the reason why there is that kind of a robust stock market is because people feel like there is a pro-economic growth president in the White House now who has reformed regulations which were way out of control. He is trying to move in the direction of tax reform, which needs, both parties agree needs to be
How's he trying to move in the
reformed.
direction of tax reform? What's he done so far?
Because his three priorities.
Because he said it?
But he
Because he
hasn't
wants to
done
get
it.
beyond the health care, which he has to do, and then he's going to get to the next thing. 6 months. In 6 months, he's done an awful lot, and he needs to be given. Last point I'll make. Foreign policy, we went from leading from behind as a nation to now a president, and when he goes to the G20 or when he goes to
A
the
lot of
Middle
people
East,
think every foreign leader he has met with has played him, but that's for another night.
Yeah,
Joe
maybe.
Malone, it's good to
Pleasure,
see you.
my friend.
Kathy Moon, great to see you as
You
well.
too.
Charlie Scipio, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Agreement as always on Donald Trump.